In this video, you will learn to add and subtract like fractions. Now, when we say like fractions, what we mean are fractions that have the same denominator. And remember, denominator is the bottom of the fraction. So here we have a couple examples. Here with example 1, we have 3 over 10 plus 2 over 10. So notice that the denominators are the same. They both have a denominator of 10. So what that means is to add, all we do is we add the numerators. So we take 3 plus 2, which gives us 5 for the numerator, and the denominator stays the same. So we have 5 over 10, which can reduce by dividing the top and the bottom by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1, 10 divided by 5 is 2, so this can simplify to become 1 over 2. Example 2, we have subtraction. Now instead of adding 3/10 and 2/10, we are subtracting those same fractions. And the concept for subtraction is exactly the same as addition. We keep the denominator the same, and then we subtract the numerators. So we do 3 minus 2 on the top to get 1, put that over 10, and our solution is 1/10. Example 3, we have addition of 3 different fractions, and here something a little different happens as well. So for adding 3 fractions, it's exactly the same as adding 2 fractions. All we do is we add the numerators, 3 plus 7 plus 2, which gives us 12 on the top, and then the denominator stays the same, which would be 10. Now with this one, this is an improper fraction because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So what that means is we'd like to convert this into a mixed number. And to do that, remember, we take 12 divided by 10, and we get 1. So 10 goes into 12 one time, and the remainder is going to be 2. So we can write that remainder as a fraction. We write that as 2 over 10. So as a mixed number, this would be 1 and 2/10. And then notice 2/10 we could simplify, and we can do that by dividing the top and the bottom by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and then 10 divided by 2 is 5. So this would become 1 and 1/5. So this 1 and 1/5 would be our solution. Now the next 2 slides we're going to work with adding mixed numbers and then subtracting mixed numbers. So here, example 4, we're adding 5 and 1/7 plus 4 and 3/7. Now with mixed numbers, what we can do is we can look at the whole numbers and put those together. So we get 5 plus 4, which would be 9. And then we add the fractions together. So 1/7 plus 3/7, we add the numerators, 1 plus 3, which gives us 4. So we have 4 over 7. So our solution for example 4 is 9 and 4/7. Example 5, something a little bit different happens. Here we have 6 and 3/8 plus 4 and 7/8. Now again, we can add the whole numbers together. 6 plus 4 would give us 10. And then we can add the fractions together. 3/8 plus 7/8. 3 plus 7 is 10, so we have 10 over 8. Now here, 10/8 is an improper fraction. So what we want to do is write 10/8 as a mixed number. All right, so here we have 10/8 typed up, and then we can convert 10/8 into a mixed number. So to do that, we do 10 divided by 8. That would give us 1. 8 goes into 10 one time. 1 times 8 is 8. Subtract, we get 2. The remainder is 2, which we can write as a fraction, and that's going to be 2 over 8. All right, so what we have is 10 in the front, and then this 10/8 is the same thing as 1 and 2/8. So we have 10 in the front plus 1 and 2/8. Well, 10 plus 1 is 11, so we have 11 and 2/8. And then from here, just notice that we can simplify the fraction part. So 2 over 8 we can simplify. So we can divide top and bottom by 2, which would give us 1 over 4. So our final answer is going to be 11 and 1/4. Now lastly, we're going to work with subtracting mixed numbers. Example 6, we have 8 and 5/9 minus 3 and 2/9. So again, just like with addition, we can look at the whole parts, the whole numbers, and subtract those together. So 8 minus 3 would give us 5. And then we can subtract the fraction part. So 5/9 minus 2/9. We subtract the numerators, 5 minus 2, which gives us 3. So 3 is on the top, 9 is on the bottom. So our solution would be 5 3/9. Now just notice we can simplify the fraction component. So the 5 would stay the same, and then 3/9 can reduce by dividing top and bottom by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, 9 divided by 3 is 3. So our final answer would be 5 1/3. Example 7, something a little bit different happens. Here we have 8 minus 2 5/6. Now for this one's different because there are whole numbers we can subtract from each other, but there are not two fractions to subtract. So when you subtract, what do we subtract the 5/6 from? So what we can do is we can think of 8 maybe as 7 plus 1. Okay, and then we have the minus 2 5/6. And we're going to do that because right here, this 1, we can write as a fraction. So the 1, if we wanted to, we can write as something over 6. So that way it subtracts with this fraction over here. Well, something over 6, what divided by 6 is 1? Well, anything divided by itself is 1. So if we do 6 over 6, or 6 divided by 6, that's going to give us 1. So what we have is 7 6/6 minus 2 5/6. We don't need that plus sign there. We can just write that as 7 6/6. So what we did basically was we borrowed 1 from the 8 right here. We borrowed 1, so that became a 7. And the one we borrowed, we wrote as a fraction. We wrote that as 6 over 6. All right, so that's what we have right here at the bottom. Now to finish off, we now have a whole number, the 7, and the whole number 2 that we can subtract from each other. 7 minus 2 is 5. And then we have the fractions now. We have 6/6 minus 5/6. 6 minus 5 is 1, so we have 1 over 6. So our final answer would be 5 1/6. One last example. Here for example 8, we're going to have two mixed numbers subtracted from each other, and it's going to be a similar concept as we did in example 7. All right, because what we have here is the whole numbers would subtract okay, right? 4 minus 2 would be 2. But what we have that's different is this fraction here. If we do 1/3 minus 2/3, that gives us a negative number, which really doesn't help us for this problem. So what we want to do is we want to, again, borrow from the 4, just like we did over here with the 8. Borrow from the 4 to make this whole number smaller, and we can make this fraction bigger. All right, so what we're going to do is we borrow from the 4. So we can think of that, if you want to write this all out, you'd have like 3 plus 1. Okay, so 4 is 3 plus 1, and then you have the 1/3. And then this 1 we want to write as a fraction, so we can put it together with this 1/3 to make it bigger. So the 1, just like we did over here in example 7, we want to write as something over 3 in this case, because all our fractions are in thirds. So something over 3 would equal 1. That's going to be 3 over 3. All right, that equals 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Then you have that 1/3 right there. So if you add 3/3 and 1/3, we're going to get 4/3, right? 3 plus 1 is 4. So what we have, bottom line, is 3 4/3 minus that 2 2/3 up there. Now, personally, when I work through this on my own, I don't write all these steps right here. What I would do, basically, is I'd see the 4, and I think, okay, I need to borrow from the 4. That becomes a 3. And the one we borrow, we're going to add to this fraction. So we have to add 3/3. So 3/3 plus the 1/3, this becomes a 4/3. All right, so this becomes 3 4/3 minus 2 2/3. So if this were me working through this on my own, I would not even show these middle steps. I would just do that little part in my head and get right to here. And now from here we can subtract quickly. So the whole numbers, 3 minus 2 would give us 1. And now the fractions work out nicely, because if we do the 4/3 minus the 2/3, 4 minus 2 is 2, and then put that over 3. So our final answer would be 1 and 2/3. And that concludes our lesson for today. We will see you next time.